Welcome. Thank you for being here. We have the ducks joining us today. The rice fields are in between harvests, and the ducks are out doing their work. So, welcome. Welcome to Satsang, Dharma Talk. This is simply the opportunity to explore a greater reality than typically what we are attentive to in this human incarnation. And it's quite a thing to take advantage of this lifetime to further enlighten who we really are. And that is to say, to meet and transcend our karma. Karma is simply that which veils truth. Limited thinking, limited perception, conditioned beliefs, feelings, storylines, thoughts. That which veils truth is our karma. And we have this opportunity in this lifetime to transcend that karma. Ram Dass has a wonderful line. It took in one of his lectures. It has been put to music. It's a beautiful piece. And I didn't get it for a while, and I couldn't quite reconcile what he was saying. And he said, our mind is our karma. It's like, what? Our mind is our karma? And then recognizing that as I started to come to recognize it, karma is anything that veils truth, anything that veils our divinity, our wholeness, our oneness, anything that confuses that is karma. And our largest contributor to the veiling of truth is our mind. So I thought today we'd start with speaking of wounding. Our emotional and psychological wounding. I remember when I was living in Sedona, looking out, I lived right on the edge of the wilderness, and I'd look out and I'd see the animals. And javelina were one of the frequent visitors, the wild pig-like creatures. And there was a javelina with a wounded back leg. And it was quite obvious. He didn't have the freedom to move in his full capacity, his or her full capacity. There was a wound. What is a hallmark of a wound? It limits our capacity to live and express in our fullness. A javelina in its wholeness and its fullness and its full capacity can run at a certain speed. This javelina couldn't. It had a wound that limited its abilities, its capacities. And for us, those wounds often show up as narratives, beliefs, self-image, triggered reactions, emotional reactions. And we have beliefs and thoughts and emotional reactions that keep us from living in our fullness, in our wholeness, in our divinity, as the grace of unwavering loving awareness and consciousness that we truly are. We have wounds that keep us from abiding our truth. And the opportunity in this life, one of the opportunities, is to meet that wounding, to see it, to be with it, to witness it, so that we might bring love to the wound. We might bring light to the wound. We might bring truth to the wound, so it may heal. And in that, we become more enlightened through a lifetime. The paradox is, the conundrum is that we have largely been taught to avoid pain. And that's another hallmark of a wound. They hurt. That's how we know it's a wound. It hurts. If I have a belief that I'm not worthy unless I am celebrated by the world, unless I am seen by others as worthy, and that's the indication of whether or not I'm worthy or not, or lovable, if that's my wound, it's going to hurt. That when that belief is active, it's going to hurt. And we tend to avoid hurt. We numb it, we avoid it, we distract from it. Most of us have not been taught how to be with it, because most of us have not been taught the essence of our being, which is love, the power and the grace and the equanimity and the compassion and the strength of love. We've not been taught that that's actually who we are. That's the essential nature of our being. And if we don't know that, let me change that. If we do know that, it's easier to meet the pain with love. So it can be loved. It can know the presence of love. It can know truth. The painful story, belief, I'm not worthy, is not true. And if we can meet that and bring our awareness to that and witness that storyline, that feeling, that pain within us, and we can meet it as love, then illusion gets to meet truth. Darkness gets to meet light. And light shines into the darkness. And when you shine light of truth into the darkness is destroyed, if you will. Darkness can't exist in the presence of light. And yet we will avoid, typically, meeting our wounds because they hurt and they're uncomfortable and they're scary. And we've been taught to avoid that which hurts and is uncomfortable and is scary. And that's why we attend to our practices of awakening, self-inquiry. Who am I? What's real? Who am I really, and what are my wounds? This is the tenets of know thyself. And we can't know the presence of a wound, of an emotional wound, psychological wound, without being pointed to it, typically by a life condition. A life condition that might traditionally elicit pain, which is to say, a life condition that'll elicit a false narrative, a wound. A belief that we were typically handed and that we collaborated with to strengthen that belief, but a belief that we were handed at some point, this lifetime, past lifetime. But we're here to enlighten those false beliefs with truth. And so we're avoiding the pain, and we're avoiding all the situations that would cause the pain. And therefore, we're not able to meet our wounding and shine the light of love into them. So we're doing all this avoiding and pushing away and denying that which we're here to explore, to meet, and to transcend. But you can't transcend something without acknowledging it, without allowing it to be fully present. So I'll give you an example. One of the wounds that I've identified in my life that I've now been able to largely transcend, which is my definition of freedom, liberation, is to finally transcend a deep pain that it was limiting my ability to live fully. And the wound was, the story was, that in order to be worthy of love and acceptance, the proof of being worthy and being lovable and acceptable was the accolades of others. And if that was absent, then I didn't know where to find any worth. I didn't know where to find any value. I didn't know how to source it from within. I didn't know that my essential nature of being, my divinity, is already stunningly not only lovable, it is love itself. I didn't know that. So I came into this incarnation, into this life, to meet this wound, to meet this karma, this veiling of my truth. I'm here to meet that illusion, that lie. I am not worthy of love unless others say that I am. So I was born into a situation that helped uh, uh, make that even more clear that that was the illusion I was here to work with. And I was born into a Hollywood family where our household was filled with a lot of the television stars from the 70s. And everything I was witnessing, in combination with the fact that my parents, who were beautiful parents, but simply didn't really have the capacity to express love easily and openly. So they weren't teaching me that I was lovable necessarily through their expression of love. So there was that. And then the general household and dynamics that I was living in, the experiences I was witnessing around me, was everybody had the same story. I have to be applauded and celebrated and seen in order to be worthy, to be okay. And if that goes away, right, that's, you watched entire careers crumble. You watch people just, oh, you're no longer important. Your show's canceled. You're gone. People aren't watching you anymore. They're no longer paying attention to you. You are now worthless. Okay, so I can help construct that storyline in my mind. And here's the beautiful thing. That's good. How else am I going to meet my karma without it being enacted, without it being prompted, without it being triggered, without it being brought to the surface? Most of us are here trying to avoid our karma because it hurts and it's scary and it's uncomfortable. We don't want to be wounded. It's like we don't want to be wounded, so we just, maybe this wound will go away. If I just ignore it, maybe it'll go away. We don't want to be wounded. The reality is we are. Karmically, we are. The illusion of separation, the dynamic of individuality that we experience in this life carries with it a strong illusion that we are the separate self, and that's the only self that we are, that we're not the love, the oneness, that we're not our divine nature. So that wounding was good. But I've been working on it for a while, and more so and powerfully with this awakening of the divine love that I am, because now that love can meet that wounding whenever it is triggered or arises. But the wound is healing. And I've learned now to celebrate every opportunity for that wound to be presented, to see if it's still active, to see if I still believe it. So for me, one of the ways that shows up is in presenting myself to the world. And sometimes that is met and applauded or appreciated. And other times it is absolutely ignored. And I get to meet that moment. I get to meet that and see if the old belief system that triggers, oh, I'm being ignored, therefore I have no value, I have no worth, I should feel really bad about myself, to see if that wound is healed yet or not. How am I going to know? Unless it's poked. When the wound is poked, does it still hurt? Oh, no, it's being healed. Oh, look, there's so much healing that even when that situation arises, there's no more pain. So the opportunity here is to allow, to celebrate even the conditions and situations in our lives that bring us face to face with our pain, with our wound, with that which is keeping us from living life fully. No, I don't want that situation. Well, what if that situation is the only thing that's going to trigger the wound that you need to heal, or that situation is the only thing that's going to help you see that that wound is healing, is no longer as painful as it used to be? How are we going to know without the situation or the condition? A friend of mine put my particular wound in perspective. And I'm talking about it because I'm sure I know that that is a very common wound for so many of us, or some iteration of it. He said, yeah, what if you throw a party and only 5 people come and 4 of them are in the band you hired? That's the fear. Oh, God, that would be horrible. And what if that was an opportunity that even if that happened, to say, wow, it's unfortunate and I would have rather it go another way, but it does not define me. It doesn't in any way impugn the knowing of my grace, of my divinity, of my beauty, of my wholeness. This is just a situation that is arising so that I can see whether or not my wounds, my karma, is healing. So there's a practice in this. And that practice allows us to get a little bit of distance from the story, from the narrative, so that the narrative can arise because it's there. That's the wounding. The wound can present itself, the pain can present itself. And that rather than getting hooked by it immediately, we can maintain some distance from it, some witnessing of it, to watch it and go, oh, there it is. There it is. And to be able to name it as a karmic wound. It's largely an activity of mind, a triggered mental and emotional, psychological narrative, feeling. That if we can allow that to arise and not immediately believe it, then we can watch it and witness it from a loving perspective, from a space of love. Oh, there's that part of me that needs to be healed. Oh, there's that hurt part of me. Yes. We've been so taught to be ashamed of our wounding. And the truth is, we're all wounded. So to be able to meet it with love. So here's the practice. What if a condition, a situation arises and we start to practice not immediately going with, being hooked by the narrative that goes with the situation? What would happen if we didn't color a moment, a situation, with our narrative about how terrible it is, about how we should feel so bad about ourselves because of it, about how afraid we should be, that we're not going to be loved, accepted, approved of, that we're going to be seen badly or in a bad light, that it's somehow our character is going to be impugned, that it's going to be embarrassing. What if we noticed that storyline wanting to present itself and didn't allow it to immediately color the neutrality of the situation? Play with that. Just imagine a triggering event happening. What if you didn't tell a story about it? The story will, I say, what if you didn't tell a story? The story's probably going to present itself. What if you didn't go with the story so quickly? What if you didn't believe it? What if you maintained distance to watch it and go, wow, there's my wounding. There's the illusion. There's the belief system arising that keeps me from living in my full potential. Because that's what wounds do. They keep us from living in our full potential. So what if we could witness it? And play with it. Wait, what if I don't believe that right now? What if I choose not to believe that right now? What happens? And you start to realize the situation remains neutral. And then we play with, okay, what if I let that belief system run wild? What if I allow it to color this moment? And we feel the pain and the constriction and the fear. And we realize, wow, that when I was just being with the moment as it is in a neutral state before I colored it with my belief, I felt okay. And then as soon as I allowed the belief system to rush in and color the experience, I felt pain. And we really come to realize that we don't typically suffer the world. We suffer our thoughts and beliefs and wounding about the world and about ourselves. Gangaji has a beautiful phrase. She says, suffering comes and goes, but it usually doesn't stick around that long if you're not that interested in it. What happens? You can play with this. What if you took 10 seconds to ask, what if I didn't believe this painful storyline? What if I didn't believe it? And for 10 seconds, you might have the experience. It goes, wow, the situation remains neutral. It's my belief that changes the situation. And what if you could expand that to 5 minutes? And relish in and enjoy the neutrality of the moment without habitually coloring every single moment with your thoughts and your beliefs and your narratives and your stories and your conditioning and your programming. Because just because our narrative, our wound, presents itself with its false story doesn't mean that it's true. The power is, the beauty is being able to recognize the illusion of our wounding. that our wounding is caused by illusion, storylines, narratives, conditioning, programming. And when we can rest in our grace, when we can rest in our divinity, our truth, then the storylines, the narratives lose their power. They still present, but we don't believe them. And when we don't believe them, we're not pushing them away. We're not denying them. We're simply saying, look, I don't believe you, but if you want to be loved, I'm here to love you. I'm here to have compassion. I'm here to allow that darkness, that wound, that pain to arise so that I can bathe it with love and with understanding, with compassion, with grace. Because that's what it wants. That's what it needs. That's how it heals. The illusion is bathed in truth. The illusion is healed with truth. Who am I really? Divine, beautiful, loving consciousness. Our mind is our karma. Our storylines, our narratives, our conditioning, our programming is our karma. All of those things veil the knowing of our truth. So awaken in our truth through our meditations, through our practices, through our dialogues, through our studies. Keep awakening our truth, keep awakening the light of our being, the grace of our being. Keep enlightening, keep awakening, keep enlightening, keep awakening. So that when the wounds present themselves, there is love available to do the healing. Mm. So what is landing? What feels good? Truth always feels good. What feels liberating? What feels good? Here in the for those in the oasis here, you have the opportunity if you ever choose it. There's a button there if you're logged in through the Chrome browser. There's a button there that says, ask to be included, and I can bring you on screen and we can have a little dialogue here. But in the meantime, any other chats or perspectives? Spaciousness, right? Yeah, right? Spaciousness, which notices the limiting thoughts. And if we don't know the spaciousness, then the limiting thought has dominance, and the limiting thought seems to constrict, veil, cloud the spaciousness. Did we talk last time about the 2+2 analogy? Okay, this one just came to me the other day, and I just love it. So, all of this journey is really around abiding our truth, right? So that we can bring that truth to meet the illusion. But to abide our truth is to say, look, I know without a doubt that the essence of my being transcends any body, mind, ego, storyline, any wounding that is present. Like when we get to the point we really know that, then the question is, do you abide that? 100%. If it's true, it's true. Do we abide it 100%? I think I was listening to Jack Kornfield once, and he had a great phrase when he was talking about commitment. And he said, when it comes to commitment, 99% commitment, oh, that's a bitch. That's hard. 100% commitment, that's a breeze. Because if we're only 99% committed, right, to, let's say, an action, a life change, it wasn't around commitment, or it was around something else, but we'll call it commitment for now. If you're only 99% committed, then a situation arises and you go, well, is this the 1% where I don't have to be committed? Is this the excuse, that I don't have to follow through on my commitments because this is the 1%, I don't have to? Well, then that turns into 2%, and that's a slippery slope. But when you're 100% committed, you never believe the lies. So once we know our true essence of being, our wholeness, our divinity, our grace, we stop questioning it. And we allow the questions that naturally might arise through our ego story, through our wounding, we allow those to arise, but we don't believe them any longer. Does that make sense? So the abidance is 100%. And that's freedom. So the analogy that came up the other day was, imagine that somebody comes up to you and they say, 2 + 2 is 7. Would you believe them? No, because this is the knowing of something. You know that 2 + 2 isn't 7, it's 4 in basic mathematics. And what if they said, no, 2 + 2 is 7? They got louder. They got more insistent. Does that change your belief? Does that change your knowing of the truth? 2 + 2 is 4. No. 2 + 2 is 7. I'm telling you it's 7. It's 7. It's 7. It's 2 + 2 is 7. I'm telling you it's 7. If you know the truth, no matter how vociferous or loud or convincing they try to be, you would just look at them and go, I know the truth. And so if I know the truth, I'm not going to be swayed by this illusion, no matter how firmly the other person believes it. So no matter how firmly our ego believes a story about I'm not worthy unless I am celebrated, valued, seen by others, once we know our divinity, our grace, the beauty and unwavering truth that we are just a soulful expression of the one love, then when any of those wounds present themselves, we don't have to get hooked by them. When they get poked and they hurt, we just can meet them, rested as love. And then we realize, wow, little by little, I'm no longer coloring the neutrality of every moment with my narratives, with my illusions, with my false beliefs. And that's how we grow and evolve. That's what we're here to do. We're here to be presented with the situations and conditions. Part of why we're here, to be presented with the situations and conditions that are going to trigger our ignorance, that are going to trigger our wounding, that are going to trigger the ignorance where we live in the illusion. We're here for that to be triggered so we can see it for what it is and remain in love. What if every moment of this lifetime, what if every breath is an opportunity to see if we can remain in love? And to know that truth, to abide it, typically, because the story, the density of our of our egoic identity, the capacity of our mind to make stuff up constantly, to imagine things so strongly they seem so real, because of the power of that. To awaken as who we really are takes practice, study, self-inquiry, these conversations, satsang, dharma talks, to keep enlightening, let that spark, breathe upon that spark of truth that shows itself. It's like, wait a minute, wait, I'm an expression of the oneness. Wait, what? And then we lose that. We kind of lose it. So we study, practice, meditate. Know that the spark turns into an ember, into a fire, into a flame, and then it's just burning brightly in the background of all experience. I am the loving consciousness in the background of all experience. And how do we know when a wound is present? Because it causes suffering.
I can tell. Like, even in this moment, I'm feeling the contractions everywhere, the tensions everywhere. And there's a feeling of actually feeling small.
Feeling small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like as age.
Yeah.
Like the child in us, right? Actually feeling small as age.
Yeah.
Energetically also small.
Yeah.
Age. And there's excessive mind stuff kind of swirling all around.
Yeah.
And contraction in the body.
Contraction, mind stuff swirling around, and we get small. We feel small.
Yeah, feeling small.
Okay. So let me ask you this, Cenk. If you were to locate truth, wholeness, where do you, if you were to surrender into that, if you would, do you experience it as coming from within, or perhaps it is all around?
I immediately went here.
You went to the heart, right? Yeah.
But when you said, or is it all around? When that experience kind of takes over or whatever, I don't feel a separation between body and all around.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's really everywhere, inside and out, and completely, it's all there is.
It's all there is. So this is a beautiful technique, if you will, to play with locating oneness, if you will. And not that it can be located because it's the oneness, but as a technique in our way of being in this world, in form. Because within there's also pain within. There's also fear within. There's contraction within. Then there's truth, and so there can be a bit of a battle, right? But if you feel into, and all of this is happening within the embrace of unwavering love. Sometimes it's easier to surrender, because if we surrender within gets complicated.
Like love without location, love without center.
Love without location.
Yeah.
Yes. So then the surrender is just a letting go, and sometimes you can feel it as a falling back. Yeah. What if everything we're seeking for, we're moving in this direction, trying to find peace, getting it to stabilize, even going in here, trying to get it to stabilize. What if it was, wait a minute, everything I'm doing is kind of moving me away from what I already am. What if the surrender is going to stop, fall back into the embrace of the oneness that we're typically moving away from?
Yeah.
So
it's a big shift.
It's a huge shift. Within meditation, I did this for a long while. I would start every meditation with, as soon as I would sit, I would just remember, no matter what is happening in this mind, body, ego story experience, it is happening within the embrace. Whatever is happening in this limited experience is happening within the embrace of the unlimited love. And I am that.
And because I know it, and I've known it very powerfully in many instances, it's kind of easy to invoke it, or kind of the remembrance of it, and then to kind of lean back into it.
Yeah. It's like learning how to lucid dream. It's like learning how to lucid dream. Right? You learn, oh, this is a dream. This is, oh, okay, I'm dreaming. Oh, I'm the dreamer. Oh, this is just a dream. And what happens if one is able to do that in lucid dreaming? Then you get to play with the dream.
Yeah.
So it is a technique. These are techniques that we practice to point awareness, to play with it.
I really love that question. When you experience wholeness, where do you experience it?
Yeah.
In a sense, nowhere.
Exactly. Can wholeness actually be contained within the human experience?
It's very obvious that it is not exclusively human. It's about creation itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obvious that, because it seemed to be everywhere.
There's no bound to it. There's no bound. So we typically, we're trying to know it through the human experience. And it's helpful to realize we never really will.
Yeah.
But we can enlighten, awaken with a sensation of that oneness, with an allowing of that oneness, of that beingness.
And bow into it, ultimately. Through the humanity.
Yeah.
Bow into it.
Bow into it. That's, yeah.
Like the reverence.
An eternal bow. To live in an eternal bow.
Yeah.
So this brings up another point of suffering and the alleviation of suffering. So if we recognize that in the oneness, everything is perfect, then we might say, well, then the suffering shouldn't be worked with because it's perfect. And it is. It's perfect in its job of pointing you to the illusion. And if the suffering is imperfection, then the desire to alleviate the suffering is also imperfection.
And it doesn't mean we're trying to change something.
No, it doesn't mean we're trying to change something, because who would need it to change? We're playing with something. We're working with something. We're allowing that the suffering and pain is there, because that's what love does. Love allows everything.
Yeah, who would need it to change?
Who would need it to change?
Yeah.
And we live in a human life, a human form, and one opportunity is to alleviate illusion, alleviate ignorance. Ignorance is what's causing the suffering. So to alleviate that suffering with enlightenment, with truth, with knowing, with grace, then allows for, all right, so that suffering is now dissipated and alleviated. And it allows for perhaps another suffering. And then that's our journey, our karma. We're here to transcend our karma. Our karma is anything that veils truth. And what is the alleviation of suffering? It's bringing truth to illusion.
It's just no longer happening through resistance.
Ah, yes, it's no longer happening through resistance. Because it can't happen through resistance. That's the thing.
Because the sense of self was the resistance.
The sense of self was the resistance. And how can you heal something that you're pushing away? Like you got a broken arm and you go to the doctor, or you got a cut and you go to the doctor and he says, "Let me take a look at that." No, we're not going to look at it. Well, then maybe it's infected. Maybe we got to go into it. Yeah, but that's going to hurt even more. Can't you just give me a shot to make the pain go away? Can't you just give me some alcohol? Can't you just give me some distraction? Can't you just give me a relationship to become addicted to make the pain go away? It's like, yeah, but the wound won't heal then, because we haven't met it. We haven't bathed it with love, with truth.
I'm still noticing in this moment that what you offered, like, where is wholeness? I'm in still.
Where is wholeness? So what you're pointing to, Cenk, is a beautiful thing about why we attend satsang and why we do our studies and why we meditate, is because we're going to find a little nourishing droplet that says, I want to marinate on that one. Somebody else in the same study hears something else, and they're like, "Ooh, this is the one that's going to marinate with me." And what's beautiful is that you have devoted yourself to being a student of knowing thyself. So you're able to notice the nuance of what is landing for you and what is going to be the most nourishing thing for you to pursue. Right? Yeah. So where is truth? Where is the wholeness? That shifted it for me when my early model was the truth of being has been diminished by my layering of story. And when the layering of story goes away, the truth of being can blossom. That's a beautiful way to be with it. And then there's wait a minute, everything within this limitation is the density. And when this falls apart as the illusion that it is, I'm released back into the boundless oneness of being. Yeah. Let go of the story. So you can play with it in different ways, and they're both valuable.
For people to, like, in one moment of exchange, to release back into the wholeness without location.
Yeah.
My feeling is that they have to have some kind of maturity sometimes. That maybe they worked on the story long enough that they can fall back without it or whatever. Like something, right? In your earlier way of working, I think that probably helped you see to a certain extent that you then were able to do this.
Falling back, right. Yeah. Okay, so this you've probably experienced this. I know I have, and I hear this a lot with people, that oftentimes in a surrender, whether it be in a meditation, a breath work, sometimes a psychedelic experience. Psychedelic experiences are powerful because they allow one to go further into the discomfort or into the unknown. That falling back for a lot of us, I remember a lot of times in meditation, I'd start to really feel this release, this surrender, and I would jolt back. Something would say, "Whoa, like you're about to where were you going? This is danger. You are about to enter formlessness, and I don't know that you're going to come back from that."
I have those experiences.
Okay.
And during falling asleep too. So
yes.
same.
Yes. I used to experience them as well. I would just be maybe napping or something like that, and I'd get these jolts of like, this. And so you were talking about maturity. In our studies, in our meditations, we mature our knowing of and faith in and abidance in the formless nature of our being. So then it's no longer so scary to surrender the form and surrender the character into the formless, because we realize, oh, I don't disappear into the formless. The illusion of self disappears into the formless, and I actually appear. There's nothing scary about being the formless nature of being.
I find myself as the formless or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you said faith in the formless, that immediately had a big impact on me. Just those words.
So faith in the formless had an impact on you. What was the impact?
I just felt my heart
open. Yeah, the heart let go.
The faith in the...
So back to what we were talking about earlier, 100% guidance. This is a powerful thing. Am I truly abiding what I know to be true, or am I still questioning it simply because a situation has triggered an old conditioning? 2 + 2 is 7. Just because that gets triggered, do I question my truth?
Yeah. And even though faith in the formless can imply a certain relationship with the absolute,
right?
There's a feeling in here that relationship can happen without the sense of separation.
Right, because then it's I have faith in the formless, and I and the formless are different. When we start to realize, oh, I am the formless, I am the faith. Faith is actually just a tool. And it's almost like a bridge. But once the bridge has been crossed, you can actually, you can let go of the faith. I don't have faith any longer. I don't need it.
That bridge, for as long as somehow the process is being digested into the absolute.
Yeah.
There's something about that.
So use the faith as a bridge, and then burn the bridge. You don't need the faith any longer. I've never said that before, but even just as I'm saying it, I'm marveling at the truth of that. I actually don't need faith any longer. What an amazing thing.
You know how the absolute has different facets, like compassion and spaciousness and whatever.
Sure.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Would you say that faith then is seen as a facet, not like something you're doing or practicing, but faith in itself? Is it a facet, would you say, of the absolute?
Everything's a facet of the absolute.
Yeah.
But
it's like beauty is, and peace is,
and suffering is, and pain is. There's nothing that's not of the absolute. But I understand your point.
Yes.
And your question of, if compassion can be seen as a facet of the absolute, and beauty can be seen as a facet of the absolute, is faith also an asset or a facet of the absolute?
Yeah, like self-belonging, like this knowing that everything is itself, for itself, by itself.
So the knowing everything is for itself, is of itself. Yes, that knowing even is a bridge. Once you are abiding the knowing, you don't need the knowing anymore. I talk about this sometimes called mental gymnastics. A lot of us will use our mental gymnastics to get back to a feeling of security. Everything happens for a reason. Oh, so I can feel okay.
And of course, so much of that can become spiritual bypassing, right?
It can be absolute spiritual bypassing. So I enjoy spiritual bypassing temporarily, but true spiritual bypassing, which is I can bypass this pain momentarily so I can remember my truth. But then I bring the truth back to the pain.
Yeah.
Right? I don't try to live on the mountaintop.
Yes, exactly.
I have the mountaintop experience to remember that.
The mountaintop is like an intellectual hunger and an illusion that we are already there.
Yeah.
For some people, it's not a real experience of the mountaintop. It's
an
intellectually created fantasy of the mountaintop.
It's right. It's a approximation of the mountaintop through a mental construct.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't confuse the finger for the moon, right? There's no truth in any teaching. None. Zero. The teachings point us to the essential absolute truth of our being. Once we abide that as self, once that wholeness is known, not I awaken in stillness, but I awaken as stillness. We no longer need any of the bridges. We no longer need the finger. A lot of this work will get stuck in the finger pointing to the moon. Oh, I got to remember my faith. I got to remember the truth. And at some point, the question has to be, wait a minute. Why do I have to keep remembering? Do I believe it? And if it's true, then it's always true. Why do I keep questioning it and asking it to prove itself again?
Yeah. And in this 24 hours of whatever thing that happened to me a few years ago, there could have never been any question of, do I have faith, do I not have faith? It was so completely inclusively transcendent that mind was no more, knowing was no more, sense of self was no more. Still, I was paying for things and eating my food. Everything was functionally, wonderfully happening.
Yeah. So how would you name then, in that 24-hour period you experienced at some point where you were just absolute, that you were aware of, you were awakened as the absolute. You're always the absolute. But in that 24-hour period, if you were to name then a truth, what do you know? Like 2 plus 4, 2 is 4, not 7.
I was not there to be aware of anything.
Well, you weren't, but in retrospect now to be able to apply, right? What do you know? What did that experience show you?
All is well.
Why is all well?
No reason.
If you were to give it a reason.
Well, because nothing can be gained, nothing can be lost.
Okay, those are...
It was so palpable. It was so incredibly beyond obvious. It didn't need to be spelled out.
And what was palpable? What is the truth?
The whole and completeness of what is.
The whole and completeness of what is. And are you that?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes the little tipping point.
And there was not even a recognition that I was that. Like, even though it was not necessary, nothing was.
Exactly.
Because consciousness did not come back to itself to look at what's happening.
Right. So in that moment, you didn't even need a bridge. You needed no bridge. You didn't need any, and I am that. You didn't need any remembrance, any bridge, any faith, any of that. It just was.
And I wasn't Cenk exclusively.
No.
Yeah. No self-definitions, no knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, but what you're describing is that was a 24-hour period, and now that is not the,
we could say,
overall experience.
Yeah.
So you might still need a little bit of a bridge.
Yeah.
So the bridge is the naming of the knowing.
And this sense of falling, really as a felt thing, maybe what comes closest to.
The sense of falling is what comes closest to that. Yeah.
The experience of it was complete surrender beyond any notion of surrender.
Okay.
It was the cosmos surrendering to itself.
Yeah. So do you practice that? In your meditations, do you practice the falling?
Yeah, on and off I kind of remember and bring it. Yeah.
Imagine making that your practice for a little while. Yeah. Fall again, fall again, fall again, let go, fall again, let go, fall again.
And the faith.
The faith will be the...
have faith in the formless.
Yeah.
And I think both those words invoke something that is like a key almost, right?
A key, yeah.
The faith and the formless, both. Because the fixation is in the form.
Fixation is in the form, yes.
Yeah. And then even remembering that the formless, even the word formless kind of allows something to automatically let go.
Okay, so 50% here. Knowing self as form, knowing self as the witness of the form, right? This is the practice is to, if this is the form, is to be, let the formless be more. So just start to move the needle. Be slightly more interested in the formlessness. It's a wonderful practice in meditation. You could do it right now. Look around. Look around.
I'm feeling.
Yeah. We get so transfixed on the form and the story and the thoughts and the beliefs and the emotion. We get so transfixed on the content of experience.
Yes.
And what if you were just 51% more interested in the formless awareness of the content of experience? Then that becomes 52%, 50,
Yeah.
What if that was, no matter what, in any moment, we could just stop and remind ourselves as a little bit of a bridge that says, no matter what is being experienced, I am the formless awareness of that. Oh yeah, I remember that. After a while, you don't need the remembering, you don't need the bridge, you don't need the finger pointing to the moon. It is just awakened as
and it
truth.
Immediately liberates my heart.
Yeah.
Immediately. And there's suddenly so much love for the formless.
It liberates your heart.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's home. Like finally I can breathe.
Yeah, there's home. Sure. Because we have illuminated the illusion with truth. And the constriction always is an indication of karma, of illusion.
Yeah.
The restriction is always an indication of our karma showing itself, to say there's an illusion at play that still needs to be enlightened.
And the absolute, at the level of the absolute, it's neither form nor formless. It's completely
right. Non-duality.
Yeah.
It's neither form or formless. We just use those as language markers.
Yes, but I do understand that because I feel that as the bridge, when the fixation is in the form, to invoke formlessness is so skillful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can recognize that.
It's skillful. This is why I say you can't wing awakening. You just can't wing it. It's a skill set. It's a maturity. It's a constant interruption of the habitual thinking. Waking up.
Yeah.
It's a skill set. It's a maturity. It's an evolution. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what we're here to do. And life will present us with situations that will show us our wounding. And typically we are trying desperately to avoid those situations. And how is somebody going to go through a life and really attend to their karma and enlighten their karma, their illusions, if they never are presented with pain, with constriction, with smallness? So I had a launch recently of a thing I've been working on for a long time. And life was beautiful enough to present a condition that would typically trigger my wounding, which was, what if you throw a party and nobody comes? Except for the 4 guys you hired to be in the band. And what a beautiful thing. This launch did not get any of the traction that I wanted. And what a freedom to allow that to be a neutral experience and not need to color it with a whole bunch of storytelling. What if I don't? And I didn't. No pain, no suffering, no illusion, just oneness, just unwavering, unconditional, loving awareness, meeting this situation and then meeting that situation. What a beautiful thing to have that opportunity to be rejected, from the egoic perspective and not have it hurt. Oh, wow. My Hollywood upbringing said you have to be applauded by others to feel good about yourself. That wound is gone. No, I don't. I know who I am. I source truth from within, or from, as we were playing with, I source truth as my oneness and not because of condition or circumstance or relationship. So I could have bemoaned that experience and gone, "Oh, this didn't turn out the way I wanted to. That's tragic." No, it's not. Life was just giving me this beautiful opportunity to witness my own healing. What if we could look at all life that way?
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. That's freedom.
Yeah, freedom.
That's freedom. Without needing mental constructs. Well, it's happening for a reason, and the reason is, that everything works out, and it's because something better is going to come along, and if it worked out that way, then I wouldn't have gone down that path, and this path is actually going to lead me to something better. So something, and I'll know.
What do they give to babies?
Pacifiers.
That.
Yeah.
Spiritual pacifier, and I hate it.
Spiritual pacifiers.
I think it's bullshit. Better to suffer psychologically than to go up to the head to try to create a wall.
Better to suffer psychologically than to
at least a more immediate experience of what you're really experiencing.
That's it. That's exactly right, Jack.
That's what I mean by spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
Unhealthy time.
Unhealthy, yeah. Oh.
It's everywhere in our culture.
We're trained to avoid pain.
Yeah.
How are we going to meet our wound unless it's poked? A wound has to be poked for us to know its presence. And when it's poked, it fucking hurts.
Yes.
And we say, oh, I don't want the hurt.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather be feeling the pain, even if I'm getting lost in it a little bit.
Yeah.
Than to try to shield myself through spiritual, toxic, new agey teachings as a buffer against life.
Yeah. The wound isn't healed.
Yeah. Here's the wound.
Here's the wound.
Better to feel it. Yeah.
Thank you, relationship breakup. Thank you, losing a job. Thank you, income difficulty. Thank you, rejection of this, Sure, it would be lovely if it went the other way. But it apparently didn't. So here it is. And now I get the opportunity to see whether or not I create what wounding wants to create pain around this circumstance. And then they'll look and go, that's my wounding. I am bringing pain to the experience. Because if I just rest in the neutrality of it, there's no pain inherent in the experience. The pain is what I bring. It's in believing my conditioning around it. It's in believing my conditioning around it. The work isn't to keep the pain from arising, the thoughts, the beliefs from arising. The work is to be able to keep that distance and stay with it.
And to learn from it. Right?
Learn from it and not believe it. Learn from it and meet it with love. Meet it with love. Meet it with love. To not make it wrong and to not bring shame to it. I should feel shame because I still have these wounded, limiting parts. Wounds limit our ability to live fully. Yeah. There's still parts of me that don't allow me to live fully, and I should be ashamed of those. We've been taught that.
Yeah, that word "still" is such a heavy shaming word. I
still have. Yeah. So the progressive path of growth is is I will be free once I have progressed through all of these wounds and find myself finally on the other side of all of them. Then I will be free. The direct path says, no, my essence of being is already free, and I can bring that freedom to meet the illusion. So Gary here is in the Oasis, and he says, karma has often been defined as something that we learn from in this life. I like your definition that, in part, says karma veils our truth, a wound. There's still a lesson to be learned from it, but looking at karma from that perspective makes our relationship to it clearer. Yeah. You know, people will say, "Oh, yeah, you're experiencing your karma," and what they're saying is, "Yeah, you're experiencing pain, aren't you? You brought that upon yourself." And in a sense, yes.
In a way, but it can very easily be like the Christian original sin.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, right?
This means look at all your evilness is coming back to haunt you. No, my ignorance is coming back.
Yes.
I'm being shown my ignorance of the divine.
And can I even see the innocence of my own ignorance?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm doing it. It's not like I'm fabricating like whatever in a way that is something wrong with me.
Well, right, because the direct path says it's not something wrong with me, because I am the divine. So how can there be something wrong with me? I am bringing that awareness of my divinity to this wound. So when I was talking about the javelina, I could watch this javelina with a bum back leg, and I could say that javelina has a wound, right? And I could say there's something wrong with that javelina, and there is. He can't function at his full capacity, but it's not. Oh, there's something wrong with that javelina. It's not a judgment.
Yes. It's not a judgment.
It's just an observation of, there's something wrong with that javelina.
It's not like a core error or something.
No.
Yeah, in their essence, something's wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
If that javelina has a bad back leg, it can't function at its full capacity. Bad javelina. Right? And that's what we typically do to our own pain and our own wounding. Bad wounding. We shame it. And that would be like the young child with a wound coming to a parent, and the parent saying, "Oh, you're broken. I can only love you when you're in your wholeness."
Big time rejection, right? That's
huge rejection. Yeah, and it hurts even more.
And then it gets projected, and like that. Later on, as an adult, from that wound, I feel rejected by life, by God, by the universe. Yeah, it gets blown out of proportion.
And if we still are then, if we're lost in the wound and we're feeling that sense of rejection and that needs to stop happening, life's going to go, no, in fact, I'm going to make it happen a little bit more until you face it, until you meet it, until you love it, whether it be in this lifetime or the next or the next. We're going to keep presenting you with situations that will point you to the presence of a wound that still needs some healing. No, I don't want that. I don't want you to look at the wound, doctor. I don't want you to look at the wound. Well, then we can't heal it.
Yeah. You know, when I think about this sometimes, it's almost like if I'm in this journey, right, separate self or not separate, as Jane, let's say, as a human being, life wants me to see it, all of its manifestations, inside and outside, through love.
Through love. What if every moment of this life is an opportunity to see if I can stay in love?
Yeah. Inside the wound, all the emotions and the shame, and outside, even war, even genocide.
Yes.
Can I perceive all that, look at all that through love?
through love, and love will seek to alleviate the suffering. It's like water trying to find its own level. Chernobyl, right, was a wasteland for so long. Nature will always try to reestablish itself. So when we are veiled from love, from the light, light will try to reestablish itself. It'll try to find that balance again. So the alleviation of the illusion, which is the cause of suffering, the illusion of separation is the cause of all suffering. The alleviation of that suffering is natural.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, love is not passive.
Love is not passive.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. Like, I love this work because it, like, okay, I could just sit and contemplate that for a while. Is love passive? Is it not passive? Is it always acting because it's its way, but not out of agenda? So love kind of is, it allows.
It's ultimate non-resistance.
It's ultimate non-resistance. It allows. Love is allowing.
But not like enabling. It's a different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, love is allowing what is while it heals, while it illuminates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love doesn't suffer the darkness. Love loves into the darkness without going to war against it.
I have felt so strongly, and even like a week ago, I think I was feeling that as love as the ultimate freedom. Like love transcends freedom. It transcends peace and joy. It goes all the way, leaps into the world, not caring for what happens to itself. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the freedom beyond freedom, because it includes any type of spiritual freedom we can think about.
Freedom is the human experience, often, of love. But it's our way of interpreting love.
Yeah.
Allowing.
People talk about spiritual freedom, right?
Yeah.
Peace, enlightenment.
Yeah.
My feeling of love is that it transcends all of that.
It is. It's the isness. It's all there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And also in its capacity for action, it can transcend all types of freedoms.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer like self-concern, what's going to happen to me.
Well, it's never saying, yeah, but. Love is never saying, yeah, but, and what if, and I should be cautious. And it just, because it cannot be diminished. There's no threat to love.
Yes.
There's no threat.
Yeah.
And therefore, it can be in that state of allowing. Like Rupert Spira's teaching that says allowing is not an activity of mind. It is the very nature of our being. Love just is. It's the oneness. Ram Dass, I am the true oneness. I am. I am unconditional loving awareness, not conditional.
And you said there's no threat to love. I love that.
There's no threat to love. Love can't be threatened. It's the oneness that can't, that's everything is of it.
Yeah. Yes. Ultimate security, in a sense.
And if we abide that absolute truth, then it allows much more easily. We're still in the human form, but so much ease in being able to meet a situation, see what kind of wounding it triggers to see if there's still illusion at play, and to evolve, to grow. That's our opportunity here, to enlighten our karma, to enlighten the illusion, to spread light into the darkness. And good chance that that dynamic is going to be more and more at play over the next couple of years, that the pains are going to be pointed out. Situations are going to continue to arise so that we will finally recognize our illusion of separation.
You mean like collectively, you're saying?
Yeah, collectively, globally, in the world of form, environmentally, financially, socially, there's going to be so much opportunity to say, do you see your pain yet? Do you see your pain yet? Do you recognize your illusion of separation? Do you recognize how deeply you are lost in the ego experience? And there's only one way I'm going to be able to get your attention. The oneness, is going to be able to get your attention. It's going to be to smack you until you finally recognize this needs to be loved. Because that's what in all of our personal journeys has happened. What brings us finally to the path of devotion, to know absolute truth of our being? Typically, it's getting it where we're in such pain and desperation. We say, I can't do this anymore. There has to be something that is missing. And that is the awakening as who we really are.
It's such a pressure cooker these days.
And that's good. It's good that it's a pressure cooker. It's good that the illusion is being pointed out, is being poked.
Yeah. Like in a relational way, from one human being to another, or talking about our own heart and vulnerability, this ultimate protection, I keep feeling that the tenderness of the heart is where I feel absolutely protected.
The tenderness of the heart is where you feel absolutely protected.
Yeah.
Isn't it fun? We use tenderness, and it is a tenderness, but then might we find that tenderness is indestructible power.
Yeah. And I've been amazed by this, just because when the realization came about this at a very human level, it was very surprising. I was not expecting that.
And a lot as men, we're told that tenderness is a vulnerability, is a weakness. And that's what we're facing. This is what we're being shown on a regular basis. We're being asked to question and look at that illusion, that tenderness and compassion and empathy and inclusion and oneness is a weakness. Where it's just blatant. It's being spoken out loud. Empathy is a weakness. So we get to see it and say, well, wait a minute. That's been kind of hiding in the shadows in the subconscious. Now it's just being blatantly put right out there. So we can look at it and say, wait a minute. Let me explore that. Let me feel empathy and feel, does empathy actually feel like a weakness? And to realize, oh my God, there's such strength in that.
And the vulnerability, let's say something happens, someone hurts me, when I can stay with the vulnerability of, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Again, the tenderness.
Yeah.
Instead of a wall. Right?
Yeah.
And nothing can penetrate.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's like, oh, wow, this hurts, and maybe I'll have to talk with my friend about this or whatever, but because I am not leaving my own heart, it's like, just by that, I'm not leaving my wholeness.
That's right.
Yes.
You don't collapse into the pain.
Yeah.
You acknowledge and allow and love the pain.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of awakening and having that. It's a little sense of separation. They're not really separate, but to be able to go, well, I'm not just the pain. There's something else that never wavers. Because this pain arose and it will pass. But when it passes, do I go with it? No, what is the beingness that is present to allow then the next experience, the next thought, the next belief to come and go?
Specifically also the energetic space right here. Just how infinitely it has such a capacity to absorb and to, I don't know, and to be with.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to play again with the thing you were talking about earlier that really landed for you. Maybe play with this a little bit, Cenk. The feeling is here that this has a capacity to absorb and be with. And what if you reverse that and let that be the surrendered oneness of being and go, oh, that has the capacity, quote, that has the capacity to allow every dynamic of me and every dynamic of this moment and every dynamic of that moment. It's the oneness that and doesn't waver.
Felt emotion.
Every felt emotion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a wonderful technique that worked for me for a while, which was to sit. And as soon as I would sit, I would start with, no matter what is happening in this body, mind, ego, story, wounding, thought, feeling, belief, experience, everything that is coming and going within this human experience is held in a embrace of boundless loving awareness. And I am that. I am that having a human experience. I am not a human with a soul. I am a soul experiencing a temporary human experience so that I can learn and mature and evolve. And the human experience is my vehicle for this evolution. And every feeling I have is an opportunity to see if I can shine love into my karma, shine love into illusion.
Wow, it's big, this one.
It's big. Yeah, it's kind of big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, like, I am the undifferentiated wholeness experiencing Cenk.
Yes, I am the undifferentiated wholeness experiencing the personal self.
Yeah.
I remember in my men's group, because I didn't know how to language it any different, but I was on this journey of awakening. And we'd meet every month. We'd go around, what's going on? And I would say pretty much every month, I would say some version of, I know I say it a lot, guys, but I don't know that I've ever known this level of freedom before, especially compared to my earlier anxiety. And they're like, you say that every month. I'm like, I know. it just feels like it just keeps getting bigger because, of course, it is. Now I know it's boundless. But I would say sometimes they would say, well, what's contributing to that? And I would say, more and more, I recognize how much I actually don't exist. How this entire temporary experience is a collection of, is a construct of identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
little things.
Yeah, and putting together a character that I'm going to use as a vehicle, but I'm not the vehicle. And then I heard the teaching about when the Buddha was asked, how long have we been doing this? How long has this soul been incarnating and evolving and growing. Because the soul is just an expression of the boundless. So how long has it been expanding its knowing of itself? And he said, imagine a mountain a mile high, or maybe it's 6, I've heard different versions of the story, 6 miles high, a mile wide. And imagine that every 100 years, a sparrow flies over this mountain with a silk scarf draped from its beak, and it rubs the silk scarf over the mountain. How long would it take that mountain to dissolve?
Yeah.
So when I look at this life and I realize that, like, I go through a day, how many, quote, moments, as if there's a thing called a moment, because if there's a moment, it's sandwiched between past and future. Well, then how long is the moment? We realize there is no moment. It's all one. There is no past and future. But if I go through a day and I recognize how many, let's say, recognitions or feelings or emotions or thoughts I might have, countless, right? And then I felt good, and then I felt confused, and then I felt good, and then I felt scared, and then I felt curious, and then I felt afraid, and then I felt, I mean, just countless. They each came and went, came and went, came and went, came and went. Each one of those is equivalent to a lifetime from a soul's perspective. So this entire life from a soul's perspective is equivalent to a little moment of awareness. So this life was about feeling fear. This moment was about feeling rejection. This moment was about feeling, transcending, this belief. This moment, this life was about transcending that belief.
Yeah.
So then allowing, everything in this moment. As Ram Dass would teach, he goes, there's nothing on your plate that isn't the stuff of your enlightenment. There ain't nothing on your plate that can't nourish you.
That brings back the faith for me, the faith in life, also the faith in our own capacity that we are capable of meeting things.
Right. The faith in our capacity to meet everything then turns into the faith in recognizing that, of course, that's true, because there is no personal self really that is limited. That's an illusion. Who am I really? Well, of course I can meet anything because it is everything. And do I believe that? Do I abide that? Do I allow that? Do I just live as that? Do I breathe it in and embody it? And so that it becomes so known that I no longer even need the faith.
Yeah.
The faith is a bridge. Go to where the faith is pointing. And then once you're there and really, truly abide that, why would you need faith any longer?
Yeah. You become the faith, the way that you're living, and everything is faith.
Everything
faith
is faith.
Expressing itself as this or that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's such a feeling of intimacy that comes when things open like this. Intimacy with all there is. Intimacy without separation.
Yeah, intimacy does really arise in this because all illusions of separation fall away. And we can start to, when we know ourselves as love, we start to see love everywhere, even when it's veiled and masked in a vehicle that is deeply in pain and lost in the illusions. We still see that is still love, simply trapped within a vehicle of illusion, that soul is exactly where it needs to be in its blink of an eye experience.
There's just a little cloud of confusion going on right there. Yeah. I remember also from that 24 hours when I looked at people that I was not perceiving as other people.
Yeah.
I could recognize, like there was a recognition that there's a thin layer of confusion over there,
Yeah.
And they think that they're separate. They think that they're not this.
Yeah.
It was recognized so quickly.
And that recognition of it can be painful at times even. I remember going through a lot of just looking around and going, oh my God, they have no idea. They're so lost in the pain and the story and the suffering and the avoidance and the denial and the resistance. Oh my God. And perfection. And if I can help alleviate that through, this is why I do what I do. If I can help alleviate that, beautiful. But it doesn't need to be all alleviated before love is known.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, is it supposed to be all alleviated? That too, I have no idea. Right? Like, I have no imposition. I have nothing to impose on that.
No, nothing to impose on that. It's just the natural. We start to recognize it as the natural way.
Adyashanti says, like, I find that lightness so liberating. Adyashanti says, like, yes, maybe as a planet we are going to go extinct. Maybe as humanity today we are going to go extinct. But can you accept that?
Yeah.
That maybe that's what's in store. That's what maybe consciousness is going to appear as that.
Yeah.
Can you expand, or can you whatever, to such a degree that even that too can be accepted as a potential scenario?
Because who would be accepting and who would be resisting? Because if you say no, that's a difficult one to accept, that humanity and this planet will destroy itself and end. From what perspective? From the perspective of the oneness,
there's no real problem.
There's no real problem.
Yeah.
No.
It's just appearing the way that it appears. It doesn't contradict itself. That's the thing. It's no. Yeah.
It's just a consequence of illusion playing itself out and dominating. We've done it multiple times. And I mean, it's kind of interesting with the pyramids of, that they're finding these underground structures, and they're like, how does this get built? How does this massive slab of granite get transported? There's no quarry around here that has this type of rock. This rock only comes from 500 miles away, or some distance away. How did it get moved? So it feels to me like there's been levels of enlightenment on this planet, that then has been obscured by ignorance and darkness and individuality, and it has dulled the experience. And so we're coming into a new phase of new enlightenment, I believe, where that dullness is being dissipated and that ignorance is being pierced and the light is illuminating. And I think we're coming into a massive time of enlightenment. And maybe that only goes so far, and maybe that gets dulled. Maybe it doesn't. But if that gets dulled, then it leads to the destruction of a planet. Okay.
In this space, there's no argument with what is.
There's never an argument with what is.
Yeah.
Because that would be isness arguing with itself. That's what ego does. Ego argues with itself. Beautiful. Whew. All right. Let's take a few minutes and just rest in a beingness with whatever is most alive within you. What if we don't color the neutrality of a moment with our stories? What if we can allow the pain of our wound to be known, not denied, not shamed, We don't have to be afraid of our own pains and wounds. What if every moment, every breath of this life can be met with the allowance of love? To stop naming our wounding as wrong. And to use all of our practices and our inquiries and our faith and even our knowing, to use all those as bridges to truth. But then to abide more and more the truth itself, burning brightly, ever present, without the need for mental bridges or even emotional bridges to truth. If we abide our divinity, we can meet our illusion and not get hooked by it. If we abide our divine truth, our absolute truth, then we can meet all of our wounding and all of our pains and all of our stories as love and keep shining the light of love into the darkness of our illusions. Blessings.